drinks. This is inside the Mead Makers studio, where we talk to mead makers, explore mead making from around the world, and get the inside scoop on some of the best meads around. Tonight, we're actually not talking with a mead maker. Tonight, we're going to be speaking with Mr. Greg Quinn from CurrantC Currant Farms up in upstate New York. Really having some technical difficulties linking up with him, so I'm hoping that we can get this all squashed this time because he has a ton of information about currants and stuff I really want to share with the mead community. And I see everybody starting to pop in here. Awesome. So let's go ahead and excellent. It says you've joined on my side. Awesome. Now it should be there. It is. Hallelujah.
We got it. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can see you.
Yay.
It's absolutely wonderful. Thank you
Wow.
so much for tolerating my my sick obsession with doing this on Instagram.
No worries. We're here now.
We're here now, and that's what matters. So I appreciate you for being here, everybody. This is Mr. Greg Quinn from CurrantC Currant Farms in I believe it's Hudson Valley, New
It,
York, upstate New York.
it's in the Hudson Valley, correct? Yeah.
Aw Awesome. So you are, as I understand it, a one of the only sole providers of black currants and certain currant varieties here in the United States. Is that correct?
No, there's
Oh,
more now. In the beginning, black currants were outlawed by Congress in 1911. And, I'm the guy that got it changed. It was originally a federal ban, and then it was kicked to states, and I got it changed in New York State. And
I see.
And that was a while ago. Most people didn't know what a black currant was because it was, had been off the radar for about 100 years. And
Gotcha.
so now there's quite a few farms that are starting to grow black currants. It's this amazing, tart little wonderful berry that's known throughout the whole world except the United States. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. So a friend of mine had shared your TEDx video with me.
Hmm.
Um, and anybody out there, if you go Google Greg Quinn Current C on YouTube, there's a TED talk that comes up. And it's about 15 to 20 minutes, something in there.
Yeah, 18 minutes, right? Yeah.
And he gives you a really wonderful background on the history of why currents were illegal. And initially, if I remember, it said it started with basically the pioneer, or not the pioneers, the pilgrims came over and had deforested a certain tree, the eastern white pine,
Hmm.
through much of our history here in America. And by the late 1800s, we had started developing a forestry service. They said, hey, we need to bring these trees back. They sent some seeds over to Germany to be propagated. They send them back. They're infected with some sort of bark rust fungus. And through legislation and decision making, they outlaw the current bush and shrub family of plants for commercial propagation, as they are the intermediary needed to cause this fungus to actually go to work on these trees.
Well done. You got it. That's the
I
story.
tried.
Yeah.
E-
Yeah, that's the
Excellent.
story.
So then, your bit of information you just said is at some point between when you got it changed for New York State and when it was instilled in 1911, it had lost its federal status and went to a state-to-state status.
Yeah, I mean it's not uncommon. It was I mean, currants were not such a big deal. New York State was actually the largest grower of red currants at the time it was banned, and there were black
Gotcha.
currant farms and so forth. But it wasn't, this huge thing. And when it fell off the radar, it pretty much. It just kind of disappeared after a while. And in the 1960s, during some federal legislative house cleaning, they decided to kick this, as well as a lot of other legislation, to states' jurisdiction because, um, it was no longer necessary for the FBI to follow up on current growers.
Gotcha.
But
Yeah.
and most of the states took the law and put it in the bottom drawer of the file cabinet because it just wasn't really an issue. And when I got the farm, when my wife and I bought the farm in 99, I was looking for a crop, an unusual crop. I have a horticultural background and a food background, and I
Nice.
didn't really want to grow corn and apples and hay. I was looking for something unusual,
Yeah.
and I stumbled across a winery nearby that was making cassis. And of course, cassis is black currants. In fact, cassis is the French word for black currant. And
Oh,
um,
cool.
and I and I knew I taught at the botanical gardens in New York at the Bronx for about 25 years, and I knew
Oh,
that they
wow.
were outlawed. And I said to the vintner, I said, "Where do you get your currants? Because they can't grow around." He said, "Ah, it's a pain in the butt. I got to bring them in from Canada."
Yeah.
And little bell went off, and I thought, illegal. Let me look into that one. That sounds fun.
Yeah.
And long story short, it's the long version's on the TED Talk. But
Yeah.
I went to work and I got the law changed in about a year, and then planted some plants, got some plants in from Canada, and planted some plants,
Yeah.
and we're the first legal currant farm in the U.S. and we're one of the few people. There are people that grow currants, as I said, and sell them and so forth. We're one of
Yeah.
the few people that have nationwide distribution for not only currants, but we actually make a whole line of black and red currant products in addition to selling the berries and the concentrate.
Gotcha.
Um, but for mead makers, what folks are interested in is the frozen black currants and our black currant concentrate. And, we really pride ourselves. We've got some really grade A fruit, and it's a wonderful marriage with mead. I'm a beekeeper as well, and most folks come back to me and they just tell me that the tartness of the black currant, and of course the sweetness of the honey is just this beautiful marriage. It's just really works well.
That's awesome. Um, Hey, Simulation, go check out the TED Talk. You guys are a phenomenal story. It wouldn't do justice in this setting, yeah, because it's a whole thing. Watch the TED Talk and the process of changing law. It's really a cool part. Um, so yeah, so one of the things I'm just fairly new to the home brewing thing. I've been doing it for about 3 years. I've been involved in the mead world for about 4 years now. Um, I guess coming up on 4 or 5 years. And one thing that is really common, especially for mead makers in the Great Lakes region and in the Northeast, is making currant meads. And this was really my first exposure to currants on this type of scale. But of all the people I talked to, nobody had mentioned like where they get their current. So I don't know if they're trying to keep, CurrantC as like a low key supplier, like they're trying to keep
Right.
it like their hidden secret or something. But I see so many people in different groups and different forums and stuff always talking about, oh, I would like to do currants, but they're hard to get. I don't know where to get them. I can't buy them in the quantities I need. And when I came across your everything, I said, hey man, it's a marriage made in heaven.
Yeah. Yeah, we supply, oh gosh, I'm not even sure now, probably 50 or 60 mead makers around the country.
Hmm.
And many of the black currant meads, I won't say all of them, but many of the black currant meads that are on the market today
Yeah.
are using our currants, as well as, we've been working closely with the AMMA, the American Mead Makers
Oh wow.
Association, which does a lot of work with home mead makers, that do
Yeah.
small batch production and that sort of thing. And
Yeah.
so we do the whole thing. We're kind of geared up for doing, large quantity and small quantity, and
Gotcha.
yeah, yeah. I would suggest that I would suspect that a lot of your listeners right now are probably using our currents in their mead.
And
And it's interesting because of course, when you're making mead, this is true with draft brewery and ciders and so forth. But you're always looking for something new. You're looking for that new flavor, that new bust out. And
yeah.
currents are so unique. They're not only unique to the mead industry, but they're unique in general, and a lot of folks, it's interesting. A lot of people really jump on the fact that it was outlawed. It's the bad
Yeah.
boy of berries. It's the outlaw fruit. It's
The
and
forbidden fruit.
exactly right. And in fact, that's the name of the TED Talk. When you search YouTube, just look up
Oh,
forbidden
okay.
fruit, and it'll bring you to the TED Talk. But yeah, I mean, it's not only, as I said, unique to and relatively new, I would say, in the last 4 or 5 years to the meat industry, but it's new to the American palate.
Yeah.
So it's a real fun thing to make, and many of the meat makers that we do business with are sending me notices all the time of ribbons and medals, and because it
Yeah.
just works so well. It's great.
And that's awesome. I mean, I'm again astonished that I made it this far into what I'm doing and haven't heard your name thrown around more. Like I said, it's almost like people are trying to keep you a secret. They don't want to get out there. These are all my currents. I don't want to let anybody know because I want them to, be there when I'm ready for them. But um, you said you have done some work with the AMMA, or you are going to do some work with the AMMA, because I'm
No,
curious
we're
to how
doing
that
some
went for you.
work. So we just did a promotion with them in February, where
Oh, okay.
all the members of AMMA got a discount. Just by telling us that they're a member of that organization, and
Gotcha.
yeah, I like working with organizations, and
Sure.
I really, we're sort of hands on. Most of the folks that I sell to, they've all got my cell number, and
Hmm.
I mean, you could certainly call the office or whatever, but
Right.
I'm a farmer. I'm doing all this stuff, but I'm also back out in the John Deere when the day is done. And so it's I'm really hands on and personal when it comes to dealing with a lot of folks out there in this industry.
Very cool. Um, so about CurrantC Currant Farm, like, so you said what year was it that you guys planted those 6,000 tree
The law,
shrubs?
the 2003 was when I
Oh,
got the law
okay.
changed. Yeah,
Oh, 2003. So it's been 20 years now, or
it's been
over
a
20
while.
years.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um, how how has the business grown, and not necessarily just in like volume, but like expanded, like product wise, varieties wise? Like where do you start and where are you at now?
Yeah, I mean it's grown. It's grown slowly. I mean, there's a lot of times there's new products like pomegranate and acai and those kind of things that
Mhm.
15 years ago or 20 years ago were unheard of, and they just exploded onto the scene.
Yeah.
And to be honest, we're a little farm here, and as I like to say, when I started this thing, I was about $20 million short of the $20 million I needed to do a proper ad campaign, and
Fair.
so we've been pushing the rock up the hill, but we're not big guys. We're not dealing with the big guys out there, which is a benefit. You know what I mean? Because
Okay.
we're flexible. We work with folks. We can give them advice and information that we've gleaned. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, the business is growing. We've got a lot of different, aspects to it. I've been going back and forth to Poland for several years. I speak some Eastern European languages, and
Cool.
Poland is as countries go, it's the largest grower of black currants in Europe.
Sure.
And they also have an institute there that does breeding. And so now I own the exclusive rights for all the Polish patented varieties of currants for
Whoa.
North America. So, and they've got some, again, because it was illegal for so long, there hasn't been anybody here in this country that have been breeding them. Now that's changing. There's a couple of folks, in fact, that we're talking to
Yeah.
that, are going to start to do some breeding programs, which is exciting. And so, yeah, we're involved in all ends of it. Obviously, the supply, but
Yeah.
I'm a farmer, so I'm really into that aspect.
So you have the patent on the Polish variety, so that means people can't bring those varieties here and grow them without your consent or your permission,
Well,
or if they do, you get a
you
cut.
know,
Like, how
you
does that
you
work?
so you can't, when you bring plants in from anywhere.
Hmm.
You don't just grab the plant and bring it in. That's illegal,
Sure.
because you can bring in insects and diseases. I mean, that's what happened in the
Invasive
beginning,
species, all
100
that
years
stuff.
exactly. Yeah. So what I had to do with the Polish varieties is I brought them in, and all of the cuttings and plants, seedlings, and so forth had to go down to the APHIS station in Beltsville, Maryland, for 3 years of post-entry quarantine, and they grew them in
Whoa.
greenhouses. to see if anything materialized, to see if there was a fungus or a disease or an insect or whatever,
Sure.
before they released them. So it's a long process, you know what I mean? And it's the Polish, the breeders that I work with. It's like anything else that develops new products or whatever. They make their money by developing these things and then obviously selling them and selling the royalties. And so
Gotcha.
the way it works with me is that when I sell this to people, I pay royalties back to Poland for every plant or seedling or whatever that I sell, and that's how they make their
Gotcha.
money, so that they can breed new varieties. It's
Very cool.
that's how they, yeah, that's how that works.
So by people going through you to get their plants means that they don't necessarily have to go through the same 3 year process, or it's
Right,
like
right.
I'm assuming. Holy Christmas! So I mean, I guess way to take one for the team. How involved were you with that? Were you the one actually growing them, or did they take over that whole thing and they grew them, and you just kind of had to sit there and watch your
Well,
babies
they
from
the way
afar?
yeah the way it works with APHIS is basically it's they control all of the plants from anywhere, and people are bringing in varieties of plants all the time, and their job is to protect the U.S. agricultural industry from diseases
Yeah.
and insects and so forth. And so they have a whole setup down in Beltsville, Maryland, where they actually have greenhouses, and they're all quarantined, and
Whoa.
and they monitor it and they control it, and it's serious stuff. And
Yeah.
so it's the toll gate, it's the speed bump that you've got to get in order to get some other plants in here. Um, and one of the problems that we have, which I've found over the years, is that as people are learning more and more about currants, there's a lot of expatriates that come from Europe or come from different areas where currants are grown, and they think it's
Yeah.
really cool to just take a bunch of cuttings and stick them in their pocket and bring
Oh.
them back home on the plane. And and it's common. It's been happening forever, and they don't realize the danger that they can really
Right.
subject the industry to, because there are, for example, some diseases in Europe that are just devastating in the case of currants. I mean, there's, this one disease called reversion virus, and if you get it in your field, the only control is to burn the field. Um,
Whoa.
so, it's the hoof and mouth disease of plants, I like to say.
Ooh.
And we don't have it here, and we don't want it here. And so,
So yeah, let's keep it that way.
yeah, we need to. I have people call me up thinking that, oh boy, I just brought in some plants. Aren't I clever? And and I say no, destroy them. You don't want to be doing that, because you're bringing in. You can't see the fungus, you can't see the diseases or the rust or whatever the
Mites,
case
spores,
is. Yeah,
anything. Yeah,
a lot
exactly.
of that
Holy
stuff. Yeah.
cow.
So anyway, yeah. So it's just
Yeah.
a little. It's a service road for the whole industry. That they have to go through that.
Okay.
So.
So you what? How many different varieties of currants does CurrantC currently offer?
You mean as far as plants are concerned?
Uh, okay, let's talk about that. What different types of products does CurrantC sell? Do you guys sell plants as well to the
We
general public, or is that something that you
we
have to sign up for?
Yeah, we do sell plants to the general public. We generally sell plants that are not patented, because, quite frankly, when you sell plants to the general public, it's very hard to control having them, not propagate them, give them to the garden centers, and all of a sudden, the whole world has got it. And the Poles are not, the institute in Poland is not getting its due. It's not getting its royalties to keep it afloat. And so when farmers
Gotcha.
buy currants from me, Polish varieties, for example, they have to sign a non-propagation agreement, and we try to control it as much as possible to
Sure.
be able to protect the Poles, because otherwise, if we dry up their source of income, they're out of business, and we don't have new wonderful varieties. And they're working on varieties all the time that have different flavor
Gotcha.
profiles. I mean, one of the issues right now, which is kind of interesting, is with climate change. The winters are getting warmer and warmer, and currants,
Yeah.
which is a temperate crop, they need 1,000 hours a year below freezing temperatures. You can't grow them in the South. And lately, over the last 4 or 5 years, here in the Hudson Valley, this year we had 720 hours. So the crops are smaller, and it's an issue. And the
Yeah.
breeders are working to develop varieties, develop cultivars that don't need as much chilling, and
Wow.
that will be able to survive on warmer winters because it's happening all over the world.
Sure.
I was just reading the other day that they're starting to make some wonderful champagne in England. I mean, who knew? It's just crazy. It's this global, this
Right.
climate change thing is real. If you have any doubts about climate change, talk to a farmer.
Yeah. No
Um,
kidding.
and so anyway, so it's we need to be able to support the breeders to be able to do this kind of stuff, to be able to come
Yeah.
up with new varieties and but long-winded answer to your question, we do a lot of products. We make ourselves jams, preserves, syrups,
Hmm.
toppings. We do chocolate covered currants. We do all granola and currants and that sort of thing, as well as the ingredient business where we sell, bulk frozen currants, IQF frozen currants, and black currant concentrate. We sell both red and black currants, and then we sell
I
black currant concentrate.
IQF. So that's individually quick
Quick
flash
frozen.
frozen, or yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah. In other
that's
words,
like
when
the premium
when it
of
really
frozen
is,
fruit.
yeah. When something is when IQF, it's generally totally without stems and bits of leaves and twigs and that kind of stuff.
Right.
Some folks like that in their mix, in their ingredients. There's
Sure.
an expression in the wine business called MOG, MOG, and it means material other than grapes. And
Gotcha.
so a lot of people like bits of leaves and, bits of
Hmm.
stems and so forth because they believe it gives it more character, probably does. In
Gotcha.
our case, we just really, the currants that we sell are really top quality, and you get currants, you just get currants.
Gotcha. Here's a question. I'm not sure how much knowledge you have on mead making, but as a currant, your knowledge in currants, would you recommend people use whole currants, concentrate, or dried currants for their
Well, I
products?
don't recommend dried currants, and I want to
Okay.
talk about dried currants in a minute. But
Yeah. Oh,
we sell both currants, the frozen currants, and the concentrate. I would say our split with mead makers is probably 50-50. Um, there's pros and cons to both of them. People think that with the skins and the seeds, they get a little bit, more character or a little bit different profile on
a
the
more
flavor end of it.
tannic
Uh,
presence or something.
Sometimes, not as much tannic, I mean, currants
Okay.
are tart, and you got to be kind of careful about the acidity and the tartness and so forth,
Sure.
which is a good thing because you don't need very much. They're really pretty potent. They're pretty strong in flavor.
Yeah.
The concentrate doesn't have any skins and seeds and so forth. That's all gone. So it's easier to use. So it really is a personal choice. I've had people that
Okay.
I was talking with one of our customers this week that's been um, buying concentrate for quite a while, and he's going to try, some currants now,
So
some frozen currants. So, with regards to the dried currants, it's an
yeah.
interesting part of the story. The law, as I mentioned, was enacted in 1911. In the 1920s, after currants had kind of fallen off the radar screen, some importers in New York, as I understand it, I wasn't around then. They brought in some dried grapes, raisins, from Greece, specifically from the Ionian region of Corinth and Zakynthos. And when the first shipments came in, back then labeling restrictions weren't so stringent, and
Yeah.
all of the writing on the outside of the boxes was in Greek.
Oh,
And as the story goes, there was somebody on the loading dock, longshoreman or whatever, whose parents were Greek or who knows what, and they mistranslated the origins, Acanthos and Corinth, to Zante currents. And so we've got 100 years of cookbooks and boxes that are
yeah.
called Zante currants, and they're actually raisins.
And
And when you buy dried currants, 90% of the time, they're actually not currants. They're grapes. They're dried grapes and raisins.
and those
In fact,
would be the
you can go into a supermarket, and Sunkist sells a box of Zante currants, and it says currants. There's grapes.
that's exactly what I was gonna say, I was like,
Yep.
I'm pretty sure you can even go to the. They have the Sun-made one with the lady with her apron pulled up, and she's
Yep.
holding.
Yep.
And
Yep.
it says
Yep.
Zante Currants, but they're not. It's a different type of grape, a smaller like
It's a great.
champagne grape or something. Yeah.
Yep, it's a small. It's called a Corinthian grape,
Oh,
and it's like I said, they dry them and they make these little currants. And I've had people tell me, "Oh, I know currants. I get them in my scones and my soda bread and my rice pilaf dishes." I mean, we've got a restaurant in town here next to where the farm is, and they've had a dish. I can't get them to change it. They've had a dish on the market with rice pilaf for probably, I mean, on the menu for probably 5 years, and it says currants, and they're not currants; they're grapes.
wow. So we just had a comment down in the comment section from Rico over at Fox's Den Meadery there in Illinois. He
Yep.
says he loves you. And he said you're awesome to work with, and he highly recommend your products. And I love Rico's meads. Fox's Den is one of my favorites,
Yeah,
favorite meaderies, especially in the past couple of years. The dude's phenomenal.
we have a great relationship with them, and they really make a top level product, one of the best.
And to know that it's coming from your guys' products now I know where he's getting. I mean, that's like in my opinion, getting Rico's stamp and on the current on this whole thing is, I mean, that's like it's like the gold standard. His stuff is amazing.
We we appreciate it. Yeah, they're great people, and they make
Yeah,
great products, great mead.
yeah. So you offer all these different varieties of products, and then you said again, the frozen, the bulk, the concentrate, the dried, and everything. How many different varieties of currants do you currently offer to the public? And like you
So
mentioned, these Polish
not a
varieties, can people buy those yet?
yeah. We're just propagating them to the point where we have enough to sell. We're selling a little bit. I'll tell you what happens. It's interesting. What a current plant performs, how a current plant performs in Poland is not the same way as it performs here. And so when
Sure.
I bring them over, it may be a superstar in Eastern Europe. And you bring it here, we have different soil, different climates, and so forth. So I do a lot of vetting with the plants. And I've had Polish varieties that I've just, first of all, some of them are susceptible to the white pine blister rust, which was the fungus that was responsible for the ban.
Right.
Obviously, we need to be super careful about that
Sure.
because we don't want that ban reenacted again.
Yeah.
And so there's some varieties that I've just said, nope, ain't going to happen, not in the U.S.
Not doing
And
it.
so it's changing all the time. But to answer your question, there's not a lot of varieties, a handful, four, five, six, that we play with. And then there's, as I said, that there's some that are not Polish and are not patented, and
Hmm.
a lot of folks use those. There's some Titania that's out there, and some Ben
Okay.
Surik, and some other varieties like that. So yeah.
I guess I misworded my question. I said varieties. What I meant to say was how many different, I guess, colors of currants, because I know there's red currants and black currants. Maybe
Oh,
those are
okay,
different varieties.
sure.
Because I know there's
Hmm.
also like pink and white as well. Maybe those are the Polish
Yes,
variety. Could you expand
correct.
on all that for us a little bit?
Sure. So there's a red currant, and under the red currant, there are subcultivars of the red currant that have been hybridized over the years. There's a white, there's a pink, and there's actually a green currant, which is pretty rare. It's not very common.
Whoa.
But all of the white and the pink are and the red are pretty much in the same family, more or
Okay.
less. When I say the same family, they're all in the same family, but they're kind of subcultivars of the red. Um, they are less tart than the black. And worldwide, and also here in the US, the black is really the big gun for a lot of reasons. First of all, it's a really robust flavor. It's strong, it's tart, it's unique. It really stands out. And again, it's a good thing because you really don't need a whole lot, depending on what you're putting it into with mead or or ciders or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
The red is less tart. The red is really beautiful, and a lot of folks will use the red in where they're going to see it. So, in other words, in pastries and
Huh.
ice creams and yogurts and that sort of thing.
Okay.
It looks on the bush. It's this red, sort of a translucent ruby color.
They're
They're just
really
gorgeous. In
pretty, I
fact,
think. Yeah.
yeah, they're gorgeous. I have a lot of chefs that get them in the summertime and use them as garnishes on wedding cakes
Oh
and
yeah.
cheese platters and whatnot because they're much fun to look at. The pink variety, which is not very common, and it's people use it for eating more than using it for an ingredient. I particularly like it. I think it's got a really delicate flavor. Um, The white, I'm not a big fan of. I think it's kind of like, it falls into the category of what's the point? It's just not, it's not outstanding and it's not unique and doesn't do a whole lot.
I gotcha.
But we probably sell, I would say, three, um, 3 to 1 black currants to red.
Okay.
Um, and the folks that are playing around with the red are really happy with them. It's just not as I think it's just not known as much.
More of a niche within a niche type of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Gotcha. So you guys, so CurrantC does offer other currants other than just the black variety. You just may not be if you don't see it
Yeah.
on your website, people should definitely reach out to you. You guys can talk and figure something out.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
Excellent.
And
I love
again,
when
I was just going to say our business is not a very, very small part of our business is selling plants. It's not really what we do or want to do. You know what I mean?
oh
I
sure
mean, when I say we want to do, I mean we'll certainly do it. We'll work with folks. Our business is selling the currants,
yeah
and the concentrates and so forth. So that's
yeah
really, where our sweet spot is.
yeah. And sorry, that's what I was trying to imply. Like if somebody is reaching out to you, like how you're saying you mentioned, white currants aren't necessarily your favorite. I don't know if you guys grow them or not, but if somebody was interested in acquiring some white currant, frozen or something, would it be worth
Yeah,
reaching out to you
we
guys over that or?
we don't grow enough
Okay.
to make it and sell it. The only ones we really grow are the red and black.
Okay. So
Only
stick
ones
to
we
the red and black, everybody.
Yeah,
If you're
yeah,
into red and black, then CurrantC is definitely your spot.
abs-
Uh,
absolutely, yeah.
Excellent. So you've been in it for a while. You say we're here 20 years in, minus a couple years for changing laws and waiting for propagation through the government and whatnot. Um, where do you see the future going? I mean, you've got these other varieties that you've just, it seems like fairly recently started propagating. Are you just trying to maintain that, or are you trying to expand out even farther and bring in more potentially quote unquote forbidden plants
No,
into the stable?
I'm always looking for something newer and better. More better than newer. So, for example, if the breeders that I work with could develop a current that doesn't need that 1,000 hours a year,
Hmm.
I'd be all over it. You know what I mean? Because it's a real issue.
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, I'm always open minded to anything. We're not stagnant. We're whatever's I'm interested. I'm eminently curious, and I'm interested in whatever's coming down the pike.
How often do you get to Europe to check out what the Polish Institute over there is doing with their different? I mean, I'm sure you have friends over there you're in communications regularly with, but like, how often do you get to go over there and see their operation? Because it sounds really impressive, personally.
It is an impressive operation. I used to go there every year, and I have a lot of really close friends over there. It's one of the reasons that we were able to negotiate my license for exclusive license for the U.S.
Sure.
And it's the kind of thing. I mean, the head of the institute many years ago, when I was first starting this thing, when his daughter graduated from high school, he sent his daughter and one of the friends over to the farm to spend the summer in America, and it's that kind of relationship. You know what I mean?
Awesome.
And I went over there every year before COVID. I've really slowed down since COVID. I haven't been on planes as much, like everybody, I guess. But yeah, no, I was very familiar. When, like I said, I have a little facility. I don't speak Polish fluently, but I speak Czech, and it's pretty close. And so yeah, so I know a lot of the big farmers over there, and when I started this thing, I realized that there was nobody else in America that I could call up and ask about currants in the United States,
Yeah.
and so I really needed to learn about growing these things and propagating and products and everything else. So I spent in the early days, I spent about 6 months, and I traveled around to 14 different countries, currant
Whoa.
growing countries around the world in both hemispheres, North and South Hemisphere. And so I've been to New Zealand, I've been to Australia, I've been to most of the countries throughout Europe and so forth. And it was really an education because I felt, in the beginning, if I was going to do this thing, if I was going to introduce this fruit to America, I should know about it. I
Yeah.
should know something about it. And it's fascinating. I mean, this is probably the last food, certainly fruit, that everybody in the world knows about except the United States because of the ban. I mean, there's
Yeah.
a lot of things that nobody knows about. So about,
Sure.
8 or 9 years ago when acai came on the market, and that's that little fruit from, the
Brazil.
rainforest. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody knew about it,
Yeah.
so it was unique. But when currants came on the market, currants are a really big deal throughout all of Europe, in the Far East, New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, much of South America in the South,
Yeah.
except the United States. So it was really kind of a trick. There's not too many things that you can say that, the United States is not aware of everything else that's going on in the world, but this was one of them.
Dude,
So it was a real trip to be able to introduce this fruit to the country.
I'll tell you what, I worked at there's a health food chain store called Sprouts. It's similar to like a Whole Foods type of
Sure.
place.
Yeah, I know
And
it. Yeah.
oh, okay. And I
Yep.
worked there in the mid 2000s, about 2006, 2007, and we were selling acai products then,
Hmm.
and I had no idea that currants were even a thing. So I think that, I mean, something like you said, these things, the pomegranate, the rise of, well, I mean, blueberries have always been around, but like the rise in popularity and these things that uh, kind of overwhelmed or overtook currants. Even though, like you said, you had already been well legalized by then, it just didn't get the market penetration. I don't know if that's the right
It
term
really,
for it, but
that's it. When acai first came onto the market, there was a group of guys, marketing guys, and I joke about not having the $20 million that I needed. The truth
right.
of the matter is they had $20 million. They were a marketing group, and
Oh,
they did a tremendous amount of marketing for acai and got them on the map.
yeah.
When pomegranates started with a beverage called Palm Wonderful. You may have seen
Yep.
it, and Palm Wonderful was created by a couple I actually know of them. I have some. They're the godparents of a very close friend of mine.
Oh,
But
wow.
anyway, they owned a lot of these are very deep pockets. They are the largest pistachio grower in the world. In fact, I think they're the largest farm operation in the world. And
Yep.
Fiji water. They owned. I think they. I don't know if they still own Tropicana, but they did at one point. And Franklin Mint. And anyway, they had a large tract of land in California, and they were going to develop it, housing. And it was on this land was a lot of these pomegranates, and so they said, listen, let's put a couple R&D guys on there before we rip everything out and see if there's anything to these bushes.
Yeah.
And the R&D guys came back and they said, we can squeeze these things into juice. Pomegranates is this weird little fruit with juicy, seeds, and it squirts all over the place. And,
Oh, yeah. They're a mess.
nobody ever saw them before. And they said they got some antioxidants and they got, it's not a bad little fruit. And so they created this drink. The variety of the pomegranates that were growing there was called Palm Wonderful. So they
Yeah.
named the juice after the variety. And because they had deep pockets, they put a lot of money into marketing. I remember when they first came out, I saw signs in the New York subways that said pomegranates have been around for 5,000 years. If you eat them, you will be too. Those kind of clever marketing things.
Right.
And again, my point of all this is that they had the money, the marketing money,
Gotcha.
which we didn't have. And so, but it's okay. I've coined the phrase Sisyphusian. We've been pushing the rock up the hill for a lot of years,
No kidding.
yeah. So we've been having a good time. I really enjoy it. I mean, to be able to change a law is a really cool thing. And
Yeah.
in my little office, which is actually a 200-year-old barn, I call it irreverently the international corporate headquarters. There's that law hanging up on the wall that I got to
Yeah.
change and signed by the governor, and
Yeah.
it's been a cool ride. It's been a great ride, and the other thing too about currants, which isn't as important to mead makers and other alcoholic makers, but it's a fact, is that. Um, Currants are amazingly healthy. They have
Yeah.
twice the antioxidant of blueberries, four times the vitamin C of oranges, more potassium than bananas, calcium, iron, manganese, magnesium in this little berry that people are still learning about.
Yeah.
So that's fun.
Ab-
It's
yeah.
with
Absolutely.
food product. Yep.
I actually think that's a very important thing to mead makers because we need all the angles we can get to
Sure.
people to sell our products and
Yep.
to I say sell but to market the products and to get people to come in and I love that you've developed a craft horticultural product without necessarily intending to and I think it's really awesome and like I said the mead makers out there I know I feel confident speaking for the vast majority. I'm saying that they greatly appreciate what you're doing, and they appreciate the bold flavors that your guys' currants are able to produce and get out there because like you said, there's not really a lot of um, berries or any other fruits really that have that such tart intensity. That's a natural juxtaposition to the sweetness of honey. It makes a wonderful pairing, and almost all of my favorite meads have black currants in them in some way, shape, or form. I'm a sucker for those big dessert style,
Yep.
heavy,
Yep.
full bodied
Yep.
ones, and
Yep.
the currants fit so well with that. We had a
Yeah, it's
question
hard to
back
get a
here.
bolder flavor than currants. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Question says, I'm pretty sure my friend Tony down in Guadalajara, Mexico, said he asked you about maybe a year or two ago if you guys shipped to Mexico. He said you pretty sure you said you didn't at the time. Has that changed at all?
Yeah, and it's not us. It's a lot of the regulations about shipping foodstuffs over the borders.
Gotcha.
It can be done, but quite frankly, you have to jump through so many hoops. And when you're talking about a product that's frozen, it just doesn't work. We have the same issue with Canada,
Oh,
um,
what about the
and I'd love to open
concentrates
up
by
this.
Pittston?
Well, the
It, it.
concentrates are frozen as well. And
Oh. Okay.
so
I didn't know that.
they're more stable than the berries. They even if they thaw out, they're okay. But you don't want them
Right.
sitting at a port in on the Mexico U.S. border in the sun for a week and a half while somebody looks for the paperwork. It's
Or
just it's
longer.
or longer
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying. So even if you had a friend here in the States to buy you some and ship it, you still take that same risk. It's not
It's got to go through.
necessarily.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
got
It's
to go
got to
through
go through
customs.
customs. Yeah, yeah. So
Got you. Okay.
unfortunately,
Yeah, because it's not like a. I mean, if it was something like a tariff thing, you could easily just pay the taxes. Or if it was, it's
right.
not like again like you're selling the whole plant, so you have to worry about some sort of invasive species or something. They don't even freeze in Mexico. I wouldn't think enough for it to grow like that. But um, yeah, the time frame, unfortunately, of frozen prevent sitting at
And
customs does really put
there's
a
an
damper on that.
absolutely, yeah. And there's another angle to the whole thing, and we have this problem as well. Sometimes we'll bring in currents or whatever from different parts of the world.
Sure.
The problem is people don't know what around here in the North America, people don't know what currents are, and so when you get up to customs,
Yeah.
it's not like a strawberry or a blueberry or a pineapple. They don't have any rules and regulations for what to look for. So it takes it,
Right.
two or three times longer than a product that they would know what is. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's a difficult scenario.
Yeah, mead makers are even aware of doing that. Every time you try to file for any sort of licensing, your government people are like, "Mead, what's that?" You have to tell them,
Yeah,
"Okay, it's wine made from
exactly.
honey. No, it's
Yeah,
not quite wine. It's not quite beer, and it's a whole thing." So yeah, having to advocate for your brand every time you talk with somebody can get incredibly exhausting.
absolutely. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
As much necessary as it is, it doesn't mean that it doesn't get exhausting.
Yeah.
So what do you have any types of products like in retail organizations? Or do you sell to like commercial stores or like a Whole Foods that people can go buy your products, or does
So
everything have to be direct from you guys?
I'll tell you the quick version of this story because it's an interesting story. But when I started this thing in 2003, we were making a beverage, a nectar, blackcurrant nectar, and I started selling it to the local stores, and it really took off. We still sell it, and it's really amazing. It's a non-alcoholic nectar,
Nice.
and people just love it. And by 2008, I was in 4,000 supermarkets around the U.S. plus
Whoa.
much of Canada, and I had actually been negotiating with Starbucks to become back then the first juice in the Starbucks chain. They had two bottled beverages, which was water and iced tea, and this was going to be the first juice, and it was really coming together. And then if you remember what happened in 2008 and 2009, the economy collapsed. And I, like 100,000 other small companies, really got beat up.
Mm.
People started paying in 30 in 90 days and 120 days, or not at all, as they went out of business.
Right.
I had just did a contract with a bottler on the West Coast and bought a lot of product, and he decided not to start making it because the economy, we were considered a high-end juice, and people were saying, it's a luxury juice. We don't want to take a chance. And long
Oh,
story short, we really, really took a beating and lost a lot of money.
yeah.
And I basically pulled in my horns and I kind of got off the shelves of a lot of that stuff because I just didn't have the cash flow. And I converted the business at that point in time. Back in 2009 and 10, there was this little new paradigm called e-commerce.
Mhm.
There was this small company selling books, called Amazon, and I thought maybe I can sell, my products on e-commerce because there's no accounts receivable. You don't sell the product if the credit card doesn't clear.
Yeah.
You don't need a lot of cash. And I went from making dozens of pallets of products a week to making dozens of cases a week. And,
No
we
shit.
started building ourselves up. So that's the backstory. We're in stores again now here in the Northeast. We're getting in more and
Yeah.
more stores, and we're hoping to, reenact that thing and get back out nationwide. We were in Whole
Oh, okay.
Foods. We were in all the big chains.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were there. So we will again.
Gotcha. Okay, so so no wonder you knew who Sprouts was when I
Yeah,
mentioned
yeah,
that. So wow, that's an incredibly unfortunate turn of events, but it's good to know that it's good to hear that you weathered the storm, at least that
yeah.
storm. You've weathered the COVID storm, and you're still doing what you got to do to survive and make it through there. It says Simulation Bruce says it's awesome you found a way to keep going through all the recessions and everything. Oh, is that beeping on your end or mine? I'm not sure
I
what
think
that
it's on. I
is.
think it's on my end. So I think a
Oh,
text is coming through. So
oh,
apologies.
goture.
I don't know if I can.
Oh,
Yeah,
no, no. As long as
yeah,
I was like, I hope it's not coming. The live stream
yeah,
has to end very quick.
yeah,
So your your products are available online regionally currently. You're looking to expand. You mentioned Amazon. I'm from the Seattle area. I grew up. I remember seeing news art like TV news reports with Jeff Bezos when he was in his garage and just
yeah, yeah.
boxes and cases of books around it. So I can imagine that your thoughts of, hey man, I could invest in this. And I mean, even still 2008 was still relatively early in the Amazon days. I mean, they were still around doing stuff,
Oh
but
yeah, yeah.
I mean, not
No, it was they.
that.
They were trying to, yeah, absolutely, and it's I make that comparison a little tongue in cheek, but it's real, and I mean,
Yeah.
we're talking with some folks right now that may want to invest in us, and
Oh, wow.
and do some combinations of products that they have and we have, and those kinds of things. So, as I said about new varieties, I'm always open to ideas, and like any business, I suppose.
Are they
And
trying to invest into the business or buy the business from you?
well, there's about a dozen ways to skin that cat, and so I'm open to any and all ideas.
Hey,
But
yeah.
yeah, it's
Well, I hope
it's
whatever
fun to
happens,
have those
the
conversations.
I hope whatever happens that the quality and the care and passion and everything that goes into the CurrantC products from just this short conversation with you, the video your TED talk, and obviously the resounding, you know, affirmations from your users. I hope all of that remains the same regardless of whatever happens, because it seems like you really have something special here going on, and I'm again ashamed that it took me this long to get a hold of you to have a conversation.
You know, Ty, when I first started this, I decided, especially since I was introducing this new fruit to many people, millions of people that had no idea what it was, I
Hmm.
decided to really take the high road and do nothing but a high quality product across the thing. All of our value added products are jams and nectars and whatever,
Yeah,
and the currants themselves and concentrates. I only deal with high end stuff.
yeah.
There's cheaper stuff out there, like always, and I just didn't want to do that. I figured I'm first to market. I own 1-800 Currants. I own www Currants. I
All
mean, I was
the
the
stuff.
I was the trailblazer, and I thought if I'm going to do this, let me put my flag on the top of the highest hill. I just want quality,
Yeah,
and that hasn't changed. We continue to hold on to that, so and it won't
that's awesome.
change. Yeah,
And so I've kept you about 15 minutes past. Do you have a few more minutes, or do I need to
sure,
let you go? Oh,
yeah, sure.
awesome. So you've mentioned again these Polish varieties that are going to be you're looking at adding them to the or you're growing them. I guess my question is like, what is the goal of propagating those other varieties? Is it to eventually add them to the product lines with CurrantC, or is it more of a passion project, so to speak, to just because because it's what you love to do?
Well, it's a little bit of both. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm always interested, as I said originally, I'm always interested in new varieties. I'm
Yeah,
always interested in finding newer and better varieties. And the breeders of the world, when they breed a variety of whatever, but certainly currants in this
yeah,
case, they're going to do crossbreeding and they're looking for different traits. So, for example, you can breed a currant. I mean, currants are extraordinarily high in ascorbic acid, which is vitamin C.
yes,
But they're breeding currants that are higher, that have more currants. Currants are extraordinarily high in anthocyanins, which is one of the top antioxidants out there. As I mentioned, most currants have about twice the amount of antioxidant as blueberries. Blueberries used to be king.
yeah,
Currants have literally not more, but twice as much. And there is work being done right now to have more anthocyanins, different flavor profiles. Currants are naturally tart.
yeah.
Some of the breeding programs are working towards a sweeter variety that has a little
Nice.
bit higher fructose. I think the tart is really good, but I think there's a market for the sweeter variety. They call it, excuse me, in Poland, they call it a dessert variety
Hmm,
because I like eating currants raw. I have them on my oatmeal and I eat them every day. Um,
nice.
but a lot of Americans don't have, they have a sweet palate. They
Yeah.
want
Oh
something
yeah.
that's sweeter. Europeans are a bit more of they lean more towards the tart. And there's a home out there for a sweeter black currant. So folks are
Yeah.
working on that. And I'm interested in all of this. As I said, I taught at the Botanical Gardens in the Bronx for 25 years, and I'm interested in plants. I'm interested in the characteristics of varieties. I just really enjoy that. So aside from the business model,
Yeah.
um, I'm interested in that aspect of it as well.
That's really cool to hear that there's other people out there doing, research and you know, uh, different types of I don't know what the term for it would be. I guess research into developing the current. I don't know what the term plant, bush, shrub, the
Yeah, it's
tree.
it's it's a shrub or a bush. Uh-huh.
That's a shrub. The
Yep.
people are figuring out ways to breed a better, higher quality, differently angled. It seems like the current is almost 100 years behind everything else, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, I mean, there's been work being done on it outside of the U.S. Again, we're sort of
Sure.
an isolated. The whole world's been moving on with currents, except for us. We're just now catching up. So, and
Yeah.
as I mentioned, there's a couple of folks that I've been talking with that are interested in doing real proper breeding programs. I don't do that, and
Yeah.
that's exciting. And develop some American varieties and so forth. And so, yeah, yeah.
So there's
It's a whole thing. It's very exciting industry. It's really vibrant.
seems like it's like the wild west of like fruit cultivation out there. It's like there's so many different avenues to go. It's kind of like everybody's kind of doing their own thing and just trying to see what works. And
Yep.
you know,
Yeah.
it seems like a really amazing and unique spot to be right now in that world.
Yeah. No, it absolutely is. And for the plant people, for the botanists, for the breeders, for the whatever, it's a never ending thing. I mean, if you look at Cornell University in New York, for example, breeds apples.
Yeah.
And every year they come out with another two or three varieties of apples. And, there's just thousands of varieties of apples. All over the world. A lot of the cider makers
Oh
use a
yeah.
lot of these antique varieties and so
Yep.
forth, and they're having a resurgence as cider's becoming more and more popular
Oh yeah.
and
Heirloom
well
apples are
known.
outrageous right now.
Yeah, no, they're just crazy. And eating apples, I mean, about, I don't know, 10 years ago, they came up with a variety called Honeycrisp, and
Oh
it just swept the market. Everybody loves it. It's got that perfect combination of, the bite and the
mm,
flavor and everything else. Really, really hard apple to grow,
yeah.
by the way.
Oh,
So it's, yeah, it's really tough, and
you wouldn't think so
especially for
by the
homeowners.
market penetration it has.
Well, yeah, I know they're really making, but I mean, it takes a ton more calcium in the soil, and it's
Oh,
really
oh, I
a.
see
But
what you're
anyway,
saying.
but the point is that they keep breeding and breeding and breeding, and every
Yeah.
once in a while something like this comes up,
Yeah.
and that's what you hope for as a breeder. That's what you hope for. You want that home run,
Oh yeah.
you get a whole lot of cultivars that you breed that are like just ho hum or
Yeah.
not worth the effort. You get a lot more of those than the home runs, than the apple crisps, honey crisps. So,
Oh yeah.
yeah, and it's the same with currants. It's the same with currants. Same with all fruit. They're looking for stuff that
Yeah.
years ago. Of course, I mean, iceberg lettuce was developed because they wanted something they could grow in California, stick on a truck, send to New York, and it would still be something that looked good on the shelf. A lot of the butterhead lettuces and Boston lettuces would be all
Yep.
wilted and brown by the time it got to New York. So that was the origin of iceberg lettuce. I mean, all of this stuff
Oh
has
yeah.
they have a goal and they go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's I've lived in Central California a couple different times in my life, and this whole valley, this San Joaquin Valley, basically from Sacramento down to the Grapevine, is nothing but it's called America's Salad Bowl. There's so much produce and everything grown here, and hearing these types of stories is always really unique. Like I currently, my family lives or grows almonds and walnuts here in the Central Valley. I think if I might be able to show you out my well, I don't know if you can see out there. See out there or not, but I'm on 60 acres of almond trees right now. So,
Right. Right.
and the almond blossom last month was amazing. All the white flowers. Anybody who has never seen almond blossoms, they look so similar to cherry blossoms. Just these beautiful white flowers, and
And
um,
that's the largest crop for commercial honeybee. For bringing honeybees around and making honey is almonds. Number
oh,
one crop.
we
Yep.
we
Yep.
can't leave any of our doors or windows or anything open. Right, there's so many bees out. My wife has gone around on all the different patios and put the little put bowls full of rocks and water in there so the bees don't drown. They got little places to drink and everything. So,
Yep. Yep.
um, yeah, it's
Yeah.
amazing how many the flowers and the bees and everything. I'd never seen something like that. It's crazy. So if people want to get your stuff, what's the best way to acquire? Is it to go directly through you to
Yeah.
currentc.com? Is it to
Go
go
to.
to Amazon?
So the easiest way to do it, Amazon's kind of difficult. Yeah, we don't sell ingredient products through Amazon. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, the best way to do is to go to CurrantC.com, which is CurrantC. A lot of people spell it with an ENT, like
Yeah.
current events, but it's ANTC, the letter C. Or if you can just go to Currants.com. It takes you to the same
Oh,
place.
okay.
Again, spelled with an A. And or you can give us a call, 1-800 Currants. Very simple. And
Awesome.
yeah, and what happens is for mead makers, certainly ingredient people,
Yeah.
when they call, I generally call them back. and
Okay.
and discuss what their needs are and what they're looking to do, and I can give them some, some real good inside advice on concentrate versus frozen currants, for example, or if they want to
Yeah.
experiment with red currants or whatever. I can really, and I enjoy that part of the business. Sometimes I'll turn
Yeah.
off the John Deere out in the field and have a phone conversation with somebody. You might be talking to me when I'm out in the field, but yeah, I always get back to folks.
That's awesome. Again, I know mead makers greatly appreciate your willingness to take your time and energy and effort out of your day, because it's not always the easiest thing to do. Like you said, you're literally in the middle of farming, but the fact that you have the passion to take the time and energy and explain your product to other people who are equally passionate about their products, again, it's that synergy, that harmoniousness
Yeah,
that comes together that again, another one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you, expand mead makers' awareness of your product. So hopefully we can get a couple more orders placed with you at least. And
that would be great. That would be great.
if nothing else, I've had a phenomenal conversation with you tonight, barring some initial technical difficulties. So thank you again so much, Greg, for joining me. It's
Uh,
been an absolute pleasure.
All right, Ty, it's been a great pleasure for me as well. Nice to speak with you.
Nice to speak with you too, man. Have a great rest of your evening.
You too.
So like I said, anybody who wants to get a hold of him, currants.com, currantc.com. Remember, that's currant with an A, not an E. Do the Google for Currants, and Greg's business will pop up. He's got a wonderful little purple and I think it's purple and gold, purple and yellow logo. Um, you can't miss it. So thank you everybody here who joined me. And I do have 2 interviews coming up next week. I believe that's going to be with Three Hands Mead on Tuesday, and I can't look at my calendar right now to see who's on the Wednesday board, but I think that was one that I pulled in. Nonetheless, got a couple interviews, one on next week, 2 interviews next week, Tuesday and Wednesday, so double header. Appreciate everybody coming in here. Go place some orders with CurrantC.com. Go support a mead maker who makes a black currant mead so we can continue to get this knowledge of this wonderful product out there, and all that stuff. So love everybody out there. Have a phenomenal rest of your evening, and I will see you guys next week. Peace.